Can Starfield have a comeback story? Is redemption needed for the game? Is redemption even possible? Now, a lot of people have been weighing in on this lately. Some feel that the game is great, that no redemption is needed. Others think that this game is far beyond saving. There are too many foundational problems with the game, the systems, or the creation engine. I find myself to be more in the middle, looking at games like Cyberpunk, which, despite what I consider to be a little bit revisionist history, like it was a good game at launch, it just had some issues on console. I think it was one of the worst launches to date, not just because of the bugs and the old consoles, but because the game as a whole was a failure compared to what they made previously as a developer, and it just fell so far below the marketing. However, even that game has had its comeback moment, right, after how badly it launched, and the same could be said of No Man's Sky. Now, without getting into the technicals and the creation engine discussion, because I'm not equipped to talk about that, I can only quote what others have said, I believe Bethesda is committed to getting Starfield into a better spot. Todd Howard seems to have indicated that, and the commitment to update the game every 6 weeks also points to that. Now, in order to establish the need for redemption, because some people just don't think that the game needs to be redeemed, we do have to look at what I consider to be the rise and fall of not just Starfield, but Bethesda. And if you like this video, make sure you hit the like button, the subscribe button, and make sure you're here for the live shows. If you guys are coming from the premiere, I appreciate that very much. We do a very brief recap here at the beginning of the VOD, so those of you that just watch the VODs get the story as well. And like many studios before them, Bethesda, do they have what it takes, I think, is the question many people are asking. Can they turn Starfield around? And is that largely going to impact what the public thinks about the next Elder Scrolls? I mean, that was something that Cyberpunk was facing. You know, so they did such a bad job with that game that then CD Projekt Red was going to have to worry about, consumer confidence in the future of The Witcher. Now, when we look at the history of Starfield, the rise is not exactly when the game launched. It's not that the game launched and it had this rise and then this fall. When it was announced, I considered that to sort of be the rise of Starfield. In 2018, the Starfield release was this announcement trailer. They released this trailer, and it was a very brief trailer. There wasn't much going on, and then this is actual gameplay that they showed us later. It remained a bit of a mystery until about 2021. The teaser trailer then dropped, and that was the teaser trailer heard round the world. There was incredible lighting, the interiors of a spaceship that just seemed too good to be true, and the prospect of space travel and exploration in a video game. Now, that was also the trailer that had the famous 11/11/22 release date that, according to Todd Howard, was set in ink. Well, that ink must have been disappearing ink, because when 2022 hit, the game was delayed into 2023. And they made this announcement before the summer. And that was when the Xbox Showcase was actually called the Xbox Bethesda Showcase. And this, for many, was the beginning of the great war and the great fight over Starfield. And the 15-minute gameplay reveal was the starter pistol. Todd Howard donned one of his best jackets, took the stage, and showcased pretty much every aspect of the game. We saw space travel, combat, exploration, and the classic Bethesdian RPG feel with their skill trees and their crafting. But the trailer was a peek behind the curtain. Performance issues within the trailer, clear quality degradation compared to the original teaser. Many thought we were facing another bait-and-switch marketing run from Bethesda. Maybe not quite as specific as the 16 times the detail, but certainly a game that would not be the triumph that everyone was hoping for. It also started the debate and the speculation about whether or not the game would be 60 FPS. Then, in similar fashion to the delay announcement in the early months of 2022, the early months of 2023 felt a bit like deja vu. Starfield was delayed once again out of the first half of the year, as was previously promised. And we now had a release date, September of 2023. And just like in 2022, this allowed Bethesda and Xbox to put Starfield on the main stage for the summer showcase, but this time in a 45-minute standalone segment called the Starfield Direct. This deep dive included staff, copious amounts of gameplay footage, and what looked like an improved game from the first outing. But the Starfield space shuttle wouldn't get too close to the sun this time. In the wake of the Starfield Direct, Todd Howard sat down with IGN and broke the news that the game would be capped at 30 FPS. A game that was being hailed as a flagship for the Xbox brand and the consoles would be running at half of the FPS fans were told would be the Xbox Series X standard output. And so the debate those fires of those debates were stoked once more, and the blaze of those fires never truly cooled down, all the way up to and through the launch of the game, with a Metacritic score that is now scarily close to leaving the 80s after flying high from select outlets that gave the game near perfect scores, and a user score that continues to drop on Steam. It's clear Starfield fell far below expectations, and to some, Bethesda had fully fallen from the throne. Excusing Fallout 76 for being made by a different team was one thing. Defending Starfield was something many long-standing Bethesda fans simply could not and would not do. Entire mod teams stopped working on the game, player numbers started to fall, and the two main celebration points for Starfield just didn't seem to matter. Most Game Pass subscribers added in a day is not really good for the players, that's good for Xbox, and 10 million total players as a bragging point didn't seem that impressive when you compare it to the sales success of both Fallout 4 and Skyrim, because that's 10 million players, not even 10 million sales. But Todd Howard and Bethesda seem to be committed to getting the game back on track. They haven't just committed to updating the game every 6 weeks. Todd Howard indicated that they have some good things on the way, and there is the anticipated Shattered Space DLC. But can Starfield have a comeback? Does it have a 2.0 moment in its future? Is there a redemption arc possible for this game? Well, I would like to think so, looking at games like Cyberpunk and No Man's Sky as examples. Understandably, given the size and scope of Starfield and the struggles with the engine, Bethesda has their work cut out for them. And I, for one, hope they pull it off. But that's just what I think. Now it's time to hear what you think. And that is the show open, guys. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed the premiere, and then just a quick 5-minute recap there before we get into the live show. And I appreciate so much you guys tuning in on YouTube. If you're listening elsewhere and you're enjoying the content, you can always come over to Reforge Gaming on YouTube, or you can go to Reforge Gaming. I believe the domain that we use is .live. ReforgeGaming.live will bring you to the YouTube channel where we do the live shows every day. And I thought this would be a fun discussion. I asked Twitter what they thought, and they are very much split on this. There are some who think the game needs no redemption. There are some who think it's beyond redemption. And then there's everything in between. And Joker Quinn kicks things off to a nice, strong start. You guys hit the goal last week, and Han shot first, and so did you. Thank you, Joker Quinn, for taking the first member shot of the day. And we made a change. All gifted members, you get to come to Friday Nights with Madam. So you got to see us play Ghost of Tsushima together. You got to see us play Gunfire Reborn. And this week's goal is a little different. The goal is quite a bit higher. At the end of the month, we're always going to have like a pretty big, maybe we could consider it a stretch goal. 500 members this week. And we'll do a community game night this Friday, and Creature has to come, and I think we'll make him play Fall Guys, because that will be hilarious. Anyways, if you guys hit that this week, that would be stellar. That would be stellar. That means you basically have to average 100 members a day, which we've done before. I believe you guys can do it. I believe we can make Friday night an incredible event this week. So make sure you guys are going through the ritual. Smash the like button. Thank you so much for being here. And if you've never been here before, make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss a live show. So I want you to weigh in. I want you to tell me what you think. Do you think that Starfield can have a comeback moment? Do you think it's possible? Do you think it's needed? What would it take? Now, I'm seeing people weigh in on this. You know, Creature put a picture of an article that basically said the game can't be fixed with updates and mods. Like, it's so far beyond that. I watched a video this morning where a guy sent out a poll, and he asked a bunch of people, you know, in the development world, can this game be saved? And they were like, no, it cannot be. And there seems to be an extreme lack of confidence in the creation engine. That seems to be where things sort of start. Starfield can be saved if Xbox allows Bethesda to make huge, like 2 to 3 DLC maps. I mean, I don't know if DLC is necessarily the answer. In my mind, you would need to do sort of like what we saw happen with Cyberpunk. They build up to a DLC, and the DLC sort of coincides with the 2.0 moment. That happened essentially with Cyberpunk. They didn't just say, oh, here's content, here's content, here's content. That was always the mistake I felt that Anthem made. Yo, good morning, Feed. I see you in the chat. I always felt that Anthem made that fundamental mistake. Instead of focusing on fixing the game at a foundational level, Anthem simply just kept adding content, and I don't think that's necessarily the solution here. Now, adding content is great for people who are satisfied with the game. If there are people playing this game, they think it's wonderful, and they just want more content, that's great for them. But in my mind, you got to turn that score around on Steam. You got to turn that consumer perception around. They're facing a similar problem that I feel that CD Projekt Red was facing. If you're wanting to move on, or in some case, if you want to sort of return to home base, which is CD Projekt Red was like, okay, so the next thing we're going to do is The Witcher, you kind of want consumer confidence to be back into a good spot, or people are going to say, this is just going to be like Cyberpunk. And I don't think that Bethesda wants to be talking about Elder Scrolls and to have like the shadow of Starfield kind of hanging over that game. I think it only gets better from Shattered Space. Eugene says there's ground level things that would need to be addressed, and I doubt they can or will make those changes. I don't disagree that there's foundational things that need to be addressed. I think the question is not, do those things exist? The question is, can they address them, and can they address them not just in a timely manner, but in a substantive way? Like, how much can they do in a single update or a single patch or even in a DLC? Like, it took Cyberpunk a while. It took a lot of updates, and they weren't just doing updates. They were adding content. They were adding systems. They were putting in things like transmog and new weapons and new content, all while also basically saying, okay, we completely changed this system. We made the driving not feel terrible. We completely reworked how this system works. Those were things that they were doing sort of in tandem. The other thing I think you have to notice is if you look at what CD Projekt Red did, they allocated a lot of people to that. When they showed that chart of how many people were working on what, there was a lot of people working on it. Sneaky Wolf says, if we're being real here, the only thing that will save Starfield is 60 FPS. I don't necessarily know if that's the primary focus. I think they have to get the game into a more respectable place with the public. Like, currently, when you go look at the score on Steam, like, I had guys that were, irritated with me even asking the question on Twitter, and I'm like, just settle down for a second. How can you possibly look at the score and think that this game doesn't need to be improved? It doesn't have a good score. It's the lowest score, I think, for a Bethesda game in the market. It was one of the lowest scores that year. For AAA games, it was one of the lowest. It did I think it might be the lowest score for the year that it released for AAA games. I don't think if you go to user scores of any of the AAA games that came out in 2023, I'd have to fact check myself here, but I think it is the lowest score. And it's like, what are you getting mad at me for? I mean, it clearly didn't do what it was supposed to do. And 10 million players? Really? Like, that's not that impressive for a Bethesda title. A Bethesda title, they shipped 12 million Fallout 4 copies in the first week. They were anticipating that many selling. Skyrim shipped like 7 million, I think, in the first 48 hours. That's what they were anticipating selling. You're not even talking about sales. You're talking about players. Like, come on. If you want this game to turn around, if you want the public perception to turn around, you can't have people going to Steam to buy it, or even going to Xbox and buying it and seeing a failing grade. Well, I don't think 68% is a failing grade on Xbox. That is darn near close to a failing grade. Ravenstorm with 29 months and a VIP. Welcome back, Ravenstorm. Appreciate you, Raven. And then Cardoc Ren with 39 months and a VIP. Thank you so much. Welcome back, Cardoc Ren. Appreciate you guys so much. 10 million players, probably 8 million playing paying $1 on Game Pass. Right. I mean, if you think about the fact that, okay, I want you to combine the two statistics that get cited, that it was the single greatest addition of people to Game Pass in a single day, and it had 10 million, it's had 10 million players. Okay, so there were 25 million people already on Game Pass. A bunch of people, a record number of people signed up for Game Pass the day that Starfield came out. And you got 10 million players. You are standing underneath the shadow of Skyrim, which has sold, 20 million total as of like 10 years ago or whatever it was. It was like 2014, I think, when I saw. I might have the stat wrong. I believe I saw a stat that said as of 2014, when is Skyrim released? How many years was that? the original release date was 2011. Yeah, I believe the stat that I looked at, it was like roughly 3 years later, it had sold like 20 million copies or something. That's the company we're talking about. That's why I said for some people, this isn't just the fall of Starfield. This is like the fall of Bethesda. It's like you could defend and dismiss Fallout 76 and be like, well, it was a different team. You can't do that this time. Yo, good morning, Croquill. You can't review bomb on Steam, but I don't expect anything less from, people tried to review bomb Starfield because it wasn't on PlayStation. There is absolutely no way you can claim that Starfield has been review bombed on Steam or Xbox. A 68% on Xbox is not the result of a review bomb, and the score on Steam is not the result of a review bomb because Steam actively combats review bombing. You think even now people are review bombing the game? In the last 30 days, the game has like a 43%. You think people are still to this day doing what? Creating new accounts, buying Starfield, and playing long enough to have their review count? You think people are actively doing that? That sounds delusional. That doesn't sound even reasonable at all to think that that's what's happening. Like, to think that it's the result of a review bomb, here's the thing I don't get. If you want to dismiss the user scores, then I think you surrender the right to talk about how many people have played the game. You cannot in one breath be like 10 million players and then in the next breath dismiss what the players think. That seems like a contradictory position to take. Like, that doesn't seem reasonable. It just doesn't. It doesn't even seem like it's not attempting to be consistent. There's no attempt to be consistent in that position. It's, 10 million players. Well, but the players didn't give it a good score. Oh yeah, but the players don't matter. There was review bombing. You cannot successfully review bomb on Steam. You can't. They actively fight against it. Do you know the gargantuan amount of people you would need to successfully impact the score when there's this many reviews? 96,000 reviews on Steam. Basically, let's just say 100,000 reviews on Steam. It's 100,000 reviews on Steam. There's no way you could get enough people to review bomb the game to actually influence that score, because Steam would catch it and they work against it. They don't allow you to do it. They actively don't allow you to, and even if they did allow you to, you're talking about the number of people you would need would be insurmountable. Like, you wouldn't be able to organize it. It simply wouldn't be possible, especially because refunds don't count in the total according to what the research that we have done, which means these are people that would have to be willing to pay for the game, keep the game, so they could review bomb the game. Okay? So, we have to set that aside. Okay? I don't want to beat that dead horse. Anybody at this point that's claiming review bombing, it's genuinely probably a waste of time to engage with that, argumentation, because it's either completely bad faith, willful dishonesty, or somebody that's just absolutely delusional. There's no reason to take that opinion seriously, okay? So, if we grant the scores are real, if we grant the scores are an indication of where the game currently stands with the public, I believe we're dealing with a CD Projekt Red situation. I believe that Bethesda is saying we have to get this game to a better place. It thought you put a link, Elemental Hero. I'll read your comment. Nightbot thought you posted a link. What about other reviews from stores like Amazon, Walmart, and other retailers? You got those reviews to count, to go over. Are you saying that those reviews are better, or are you saying those are also bad and evidence that there's no way somebody review bombed the game? I'm not sure what you're saying, Elemental Hero, because if you Google Starfield, okay, if you just go into the Google search engine and all you type is the word Starfield, it says here that Google users gave it a 67%. Isn't that interesting? It's exactly the same score that it has on Xbox, a 67, and then has a 61 on Steam, all in the same hemisphere. Like, if you go to other storefronts, you're seeing similar scores. You're seeing similar results. I've not looked at Amazon. I mean, I guess we could. The point is that across the board, if you're having to hunt for a group of people that gave the game a good score. Yeah, like, okay, so it has a 4 out of 5 stars on the standard edition for the Windows digital code, and then the physical release on Amazon actually has a good score. It has a 4.3 out of 5 out of 630 people. Okay, so we have 100,000 on Steam. I don't know how many people rated it on Google. I don't know if it'll tell me that. Can I go to the reviews and see the total count? It doesn't look... audience reviews on Google is like 3,000. And then there's... Yeah, so there's even more on Google. There's 600 reviews on Amazon. 600. The smallest sampling of users is Amazon. 630 people. There's thousands on Xbox. How many is it on Xbox? Hang on, let me go in here and look. 28,000 on Xbox. 100,000 on Steam. 3,000 on Google. Like, yeah, it just isn't worth. We need to pivot from this to talking about what would they need to do. I don't think it's worth saying, oh, the scores are bad and they're genuine. I think we have to just accept that as the foundational premise of the idea that this game needs to have a comeback moment. If you have to retreat to the 600 people on Amazon to claim the game has a good score, you're down real bad. You what do they say? You're starving. Okay, so anyways, we're looking at a game that I think we just have to accept foundationally is not where it intended to be, or is not where the marketing painted it to be when it was coming out. It also has fallen below what you would expect from the developer. That's why I feel like it's similar to what happened with CD Projekt Red. Because CD Projekt Red couldn't release Cyberpunk in a vacuum and then be like, well, that's it. We're going to move on to The Witcher. Cyberpunk had primarily technical issues. Starfield's game concept of empty space exploration and bad story are fundamentally broken. See, I consider that to be revisionist history about Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk is one of the worst launch games in the history of games. And the idea that we're going to go back in time and say, well, it was mainly technical issues. Then why do they have to rework virtually every system of the game? Why? Why? If that game was largely just had technical problems, then they would have just done bug fixes. And then they would have released Phantom Liberty, and they would have gone like this and been like, everybody should be happy now, right? The revisionist history is so unsubstantiated about Cyberpunk. To act like, oh, it was just technical issues. No, it was not. If it was just technical issues, then CD Projekt Red would not have allocated the amount of bandwidth, manpower, and they wouldn't have reworked numerous systems, like from the ground up. The revisionist history about Cyberpunk, I think, is so unhelpful because it makes it seem like, yeah, they just had to kind of iron out the bugs and then a good game emerged. No, you're talking about The Witcher 3. The Witcher 3 was a stellar game mired in bugs and glitches. They fixed the bugs and the glitches, and a good game emerged. That is not true of Cyberpunk. Do y'all not remember the hilarious clips of people, how they used to show how great Cyberpunk's gameplay was? Yeah, there was so much wrong with that game's gameplay, its systems, its AI, all the internal RPG systems. So much of that game was rebuilt over time. To the point that when you play Phantom Liberty, you're engaging with a completely different version of the experience. So much more polished from a performance standpoint, obviously, but then entire systems have been rebuilt. So the point is, CD Projekt Red wouldn't have done that if, number one, that if Cyberpunk was just, oh, it was fine, it just had technical problems. They wouldn't have done all that work over those years. And they certainly wouldn't have done that if it wasn't needed for their own, I think, reputation. And I think Bethesda's in a similar spot. I really do. I think that they're in a similar spot. They have some of their biggest franchises out on the horizon, Elder Scrolls and Fallout, and you can't ride on a hobbled horse to get there because everybody's going to keep pointing to Starfield. They're going to be like, "Are you kidding me? We don't have confidence in your next game. Starfield's a disaster. Look at his score. You can't have a game sitting in Steam with a failing grade or a near failing grade on your home turf platform, the Xbox. 68%. You can't do that as a developer. I think they're going to use Starfield, the updates, the every 6 weeks updates and patches, and Shattered Space to win back consumer confidence. I believe that that's their plan. Remember when Starfield got an award for innovation on Steam? Yeah, but you would have to point to what they innovated. I still feel like that I still feel like that award was a joke. That can't. Who voted? All the people that gave it a 60% voted. All the Steam users that gave it a failing grade voted and said it deserves for innovation. What did it innovate exactly? I'm genuinely curious. I said this the other day. I remember when I played Fallout 4 and I loved it and I didn't understand everybody complaining about it. It was my first experience with a Fallout, right? And I remember the first time I played Skyrim and I had such an amazing time with Skyrim, and it was my first experience with a Bethesda game. So I experienced Skyrim before Fallout. And I remember people that were Bethesda fans saying that I didn't really truly understand why I was picking like the worst album. It was like when I was late to the party with Rage Against the Machine, and I think that Battle of Los Angeles is my favorite album, and people are like, oh, that's ridiculous. And there are big Rage fans that are like, that's their worst album, okay? I feel like that happens with video games like this. I saw people talking about Starfield, and I'm like, okay, so clearly you didn't play Fallout 4. Because it's basically all of the systems from Fallout 4 lifted wholesale and just put in space. Now, granted, the ship is cool, and the flight systems are cool. Like, how you control your ship is pretty cool. But that's pretty much the only thing in the game that felt like, oh, I haven't seen this before. Everything I had seen before, the inventory, the guns, the crafting, the questing, the way you interact with NPCs, it was one-to-one. It was like, this is all directly lifted from Fallout. They should, like I said, Starfield is essentially Fallout 5. It's just a different story. It's, well, we're not going to go into vaults. Earth's not habitable anymore. We're going to leave. We're going to go in outer space. Like, that's essentially what I think might have been the original concept that gave birth to Starfield is, well, what if the next Fallout game leaves Earth because it just becomes so bad there is no coming out from the shelters anymore. I don't think it's going to be saved because of the writing for the characters in the story. The other problem is Starfield should have been like No Man's Sky or Star Trek with no loading screens. It was a troll vote. I mean, I to this day feel that the Steam user base essentially trolled Starfield with the innovation vote because everybody knew the Bethesda fans had voted and said, this is not innovative at all. It isn't. It's so similar. Faction quests are fantastic too. The dogfighting in the game and the shipbuilding alone is its own game for me. I mean, I could see there were people that thought that Infinite. They thought that the shipbuilding and the dogfighting was exceptional. I personally don't play a game like this to get in ship battles. I play No Man's Sky the same way. I'd rather be on the ground, exploring, building. I don't mind getting in the ship and going into outer space and going to space stations and jumping between the planets. I like that as well. I think that's part of the experience, but I'm not looking for the dogfights. And I appreciate the people that like it because that's part of the game, and hopefully they built something that people can enjoy. Now, there were other people that didn't find the ship combat to be all that compelling because they felt like it was generally very, very basic and not extensive. It was, is very rudimentary, and it was not a significant part of the game either. It felt, to some people, I didn't mess with it enough to say this, some people felt it was a bit of a tack on. So, Tales of Kinsera is getting not the best response. I have a code. We'll be playing that tomorrow. I'm excited to check it out. I am doing a second show today with Kirk about Stellar Blade. We want to talk about it before it comes out, and then we'll revisit it and talk about it after it comes out. So we'll be doing that today. Guys, make sure if you're tuning in, we've only been live for about 30 minutes. Usually I would just now be coming out of my monologue, but my monologue now goes live in the form of an upload, and that has already happened. So if you haven't seen that yet, be sure to check that one out. It's doing very, very well. So thank you to everybody who supported that video. I'm going to check some of the comments now just to see what people are saying. This guy says here, Get Awesome Gaming says, unless Bethesda can successfully rebrand loading screens as a positive, I don't see much salvageable about Starfield. Loading screens are tolerable if everything else gets improved. I actually could tolerate the loading screens. Like, I would just accept that. Like, there's nothing you can do, I don't think, to like fundamentally take that out of the game. But I everything else would have to really, really make up for it, if that makes sense. What's good, Keenan? How are you? And guys, don't forget, as you're pressing that like button, let's set our sights on 200 likes. That'll actually really help the video find more people. So thanks for the strong turnouts today. If you've never been here before, I am a safe for work broadcaster. You can throw me out in the background of your day like a talk show. And we do have a member goal. Every 25, I give 5. And the big goal this week is 500. You guys hit 300 last week. We're trying to hit 500 members this week. That's not the total count. That's just the total for the week. We don't go for total count anymore because it goes up and down too much. And it ends up taking progress away from you, and I didn't like the way that felt. So, also, if you upgrade, that counts toward the goal. So if you're currently on a gifted membership or a $5 membership, and you upgrade to the Member Plus for $1, or you upgrade to VIP, that counts as well toward the goal. This guy says, Skyrim did not have the lowest scores. The game had 10 out of 10. IGN, crappy woke rating company anyway. I just remember with Skyrim, people saying Skyrim was a buggy mess. I loved it and didn't know what they were talking about. I didn't understand why people were saying that. I was like, why? I remember being like, I love Skyrim. I had so much fun with Skyrim. And people were like, oh, it was so buggy and bad. And the modders kept it alive. And I decided the same experience with Fallout 4. I played Fallout 4. I had a great time with it. And then I came back later whenever I would talk about it. And people were like, oh, it was so bad at launch. It was a buggy, gross mess. And the modders had to fix it. And I'm like, okay. I don't know if that's true, but okay. Yes, we will be checking out the Fallout 4 Next Gen update this week, Darth Ascension. I just got an error starting Starfield out of nowhere saying I refunded the game. J-Man Game says, loading screens complaining proves there is a bias and a trend to hate Starfield. Every single Bethesda game has loading screens. Okay, I'm going to disagree with what you're saying, all right? Because I don't think you can say complaining about a loading screen is a bias and a trend to hate Starfield. And let me explain why I don't think your position is fair. We were told for literally a year, and you just got a gifted membership, so your disagreement's welcome as long as you're respectful. Stone Spire gifted a member, and it goes to J-Man Games, the person I'm presently disagreeing with. Disagreement is totally healthy and welcome here, but I am going to disagree with you, okay? We were told for quite a long time that loading screens were a thing of the past. Now, your pushback might be, well, Bethesda didn't make that promise, and all Bethesda games have had loading screens. Okay, I'm going to take your point, and I'm going to attempt to push back on it, all right? I have played plenty of open world games, open world action-adventure games, and they all have had loading screens. And then I got a PS5, and that basically stopped happening. I'll give you an example with a game that was updated, Ghost of Tsushima. Ghost of Tsushima is an open-world action RPG. It was on the PlayStation 4. It was a PlayStation 4 game. They updated it for the PS5 and removed the loading screens. When you fast travel, it's instantaneous. So my pushback to you is, I don't think somebody taking issue with loading screens is a bias and just, oh, they're just hating Starfield because, oh, all Bethesda games have had loading screens. Okay, pretty much every single game I have ever played up until this generation has had loading screens. That's the point. This gen was supposed to get rid of loading screens. Now, as I said in response to the guy that left the comment, I personally could get over loading screens if the game is really good, right? What am I waiting for? You wait in line. My family and I went to Thunder over Louisville. We have friends, and they are Korean, and they had never been, and this might be their last year here, which I don't want to talk about it too much. I'll get really sad. They're probably moving back this year, and they had never been. And I was like, we have loved introducing them to American customs, trick-or-treating, going and looking at Christmas lights, things like that. And I was like, well, we got to take them to Thunder over Louisville, okay? Like the biggest annual North American fireworks display, okay? Fantastic. All for a horse race. It's wonderful. They do it right on the river, off of a barge, off of a bridge. It's beautiful. It reflects off the water. It's an experience. Now, we went very early in the day, around 2, We could watch the air show, and we sat down there on the lawn with everybody else until 9:30. So we waited 6.5 hours for this spectacular fireworks display, and then we went home. We were in the car for so long, what would ordinarily be a 15-minute drive was an hour and a half, and my children and their friends were able to watch Frozen 2 in completion before we got home. Now, we did all that, and we put up with all of that because it was worth it. The fireworks display was worth it. I can get over... We didn't have any alcohol, Eugene. I can get over loading screens if what I'm waiting for is worth it. You have to give me the fireworks. You have to give me the amazing air show. You have to give me something worth sitting there. Why? Because somebody might push back and be like, oh, come on. That's such an exaggeration. The loading screens aren't that long. It's not the length of the loading screen. It's how many of them there are. They add up over time. They really, really do. Trick-or-treating comes from Ireland, like Halloween itself. Okay, I didn't do a research paper on every custom we introduced them to so that I could tell them, like, here's the etymological background on the word Halloween. I just said, this is what we do in America when this Halloween tradition comes around, or when Christmas comes around, right? Like, same with Easter. Like, I didn't get out like a piece of cardboard and a little pointer and give them like a breakdown of like where the holidays came from. I just said, this is how we celebrate X holiday. Jiminy frickin' Christmas. Rissick with a gifted member takes us to 3 on the day. Thank you very much. And 7 from Cat Uncle says, next-gen game like Starfield should have either had limited loading screens or find a way to disguise them, at least relating to this gen of consoles. And the point I was simply making was, we sat through that with them, and they sat through it, and it was cold, and we didn't bring blankets because I was an idiot, and I forgot how cold it gets down there when the sun goes down and you're sitting next to the river. But it was enjoyable, and it was worth it. Now, if we had gone down, and we had sat there for that amount of time, and the air show was a couple of prop planes, and that's it, not like F-16 fighter jets and B-52s. I mean, monsters flying overhead. It was awesome. Helicopters. They were dropping people in the water and showing how you get them back out of the water. There was a guy with pontoons, and he landed in the river and took off again. It was sweet. There was like aerial tricks and smoke and lights. If we would have sat and been like, it was like 2 or 3 prop planes, and then if the fireworks show would have been just like a normal fireworks show, like nothing spectacular, just like a basic fireworks show that you can see at like your county fair or something, we would have been like, this wasn't worth it. It wouldn't have been worth the wait. If your game is going to consistently have loading screens laced throughout it, buddy, what's in between those loading screens has got to be very, very good. And then I would put up with it. I don't know if they can fundamentally change the game to get to that place. I don't know if they can. I don't necessarily believe in Starfield. I believe in comebacks. Does that make sense? Like, when I looked at Cyberpunk pre-Phantom Liberty, like a year or two, I was like, I'm never going to play that game. I'm never going to enjoy that game. I couldn't see a way that would happen, and it happened. So that makes me say, I believe in comebacks. It's happened. You know? Thunder's like the best thing Louisville has to offer. It's pretty amazing. We would drive from Lexington to go during college. Oh, yeah. You got to go at least once. My wife's like, we should do this next year. I'm like, there's no way we're doing this next year. It is absolute. It's not. It's all the things I'm not really a huge fan of, and it's also, like, incredibly crazy and long, and everyone's tired, and the driving especially. It's like literally just sitting in traffic for an hour and a half like no one's moving. It's like just pure misery. Daniel with a $10 super chat says, my biggest issues are that it feels like everything interesting in the game's own lore happens before the game is picked up, or that there isn't even a morally gray companion. Hang on, somebody said, I thought I saw something else I was going to read. I guess it's gone. If you guys are posting comments and I'm not reading them, you can always repost them after a minute if you feel like you need to. This guy says, I don't know who even gives Bethesda a minute of their time specifically in 2024. I believe in video game comebacks. I do. I believe in video game comebacks. This guy says, big conspiracy. This is Grim Dark Truth. Left a comment on the monologue. He says, big conspiracy. But do you think Xbox wants to bring Starfield to PS5 and Sony told them they needed a performance mode first? This might be the update coming. I have heard this theory and I am 50-50 on it. I'm 50-50 on that theory. Stone Spire with another gifted member. Stone Spire's like, come on, boys. Am I going to carry the member count all on my own? You know, we're going to try to hit 500 this week. He's setting up the 20-bomb dunker, and he puts it to 5, 2 singles. Let's see if anybody's in the chat, Stone. You're trying to tempt one of the big boys. Stone is the best at this. He sets the layup up. He lays it up, I'm sorry. Anyways. This Friday, we'll do a community game night, and Creature has to come if you guys hit 500 for the week. Just off topic, you getting excited for Sea of Thieves? I played the beta, and I hope it does well. It runs better on PS5, according to Digital Foundry, which, you know, I don't know what to say to that. You know. So much running circles around the PS5. running in circles is certainly a picture that comes to mind. Anyways, yeah, I hope it does very, very well. It's just not my cup of tea. Every time I play it, I end up having an experience. It's like, yeah, I don't like this game enough to put up with the negatives. Like, I think every game has negatives. Sheriff Bruce Lee with the 5 bomb says, let's go. Let's get this started today. If a bunch of you did 5 bombs, it would add up so quickly. You guys have been doing that lately on little tears and trains, and I appreciate it. Eugene says, I don't think Sony cares about what third parties do unless Sony has paid for the title. And a single comes in from DK Bager. That's why I said I'm 50-50 on it. Like, there's half of me that thinks, I mean, yeah, maybe PlayStation was like, that's a pretty big title, and we really don't want it coming over here and performing in that way. Like, our consumers would be, especially if you think about it like this, the PlayStation user base hugely purchased Fallout 4, okay? Which I think indicates that there is a large Bethesda fan base on PlayStation. So there's a half my brain that says they might have said, listen, we got a pretty big Bethesda fan base over here, and we don't want that over here running at 30. But then there's the other half of my brain that is like, would Sony even give an ounce of care to have that conversation? Like, I just don't know. I've not landed on an either way. If you made me put my chips on a bet, I would bet PlayStation hasn't said a word to Xbox about Starfield. If Starfield's coming to PlayStation 5, which I believe that it is, if it in fact does come over, I don't think PlayStation had much of a conversation about like, well, you better make that game better. I would think internally, Bethesda knows that if they want to ship that game on PS5, it's got to run better. I think they know that. They know that they have a large audience on PlayStation. That how could they not? They've seen the sales reports of their own dadgum games. Like, they know there's a bunch of people over there that would buy this game, but we've got to earn that. Right now, they don't have public confidence. They don't have the public's trust or the public's confidence. The score for the game with the users is bad. And I'm going to tell you something. It makes it worse, and it makes it more damaging when you handpick review outlets that give you 9s and 10s, and then the users land in the 60%. Like, that makes it worse. The public sees that and says, there's a disconnect here, and it puts, I think, a greater distrust on the developer. In my opinion, the long-term effect of juicing your Metacritic score by handpicking outlets that are like, it's a 9 out of 10, it's a 10 out of 10, it's a masterpiece. That ends up backfiring long-term, because now the public is saying, why does it have a 60% on Steam and a 68% on Xbox and a 43% in the last 30 days on Steam? Why does it have that if the review outlets were giving it such good scores? That is how you foster public distrust. You create a disconnect from the public and the review outlets that you sent codes to. That's a wonderful way to foster distrust. I think it makes it worse. I think if it would have landed in like the 70s with the review outlets, and then it landed in like, 68s, mid 60s on the users, I don't think that fosters distrust. But when you see 9s and 10s and glowing praise from these outlets, and then you go to the digital store to buy it and you're like, what in the frick, man? People are not enjoying this game. It has a bad score. That fosters distrust. You're thinking, I can't trust these devs. I can't trust these outlets. So imagine that you own a PlayStation. And imagine you're watching all this transpire. You've seen the scores, you've seen the reviews, you've heard people talking about it, and then it lands on your system. It better have gone through a pretty significant transformation. J-Man with a 10 spot says, play vanilla Skyrim, then go play Nolvis Skyrim and tell me mods cannot fix Starfield. Improved NPCs, added quests, improved combat, adds so much amazing handcrafted content. Thanks for the membership. J-Man Games, I love that you brought this up because it's such an interesting perspective that mods fixing older games proves Starfield can be fixed. I actually think I agree with you. I think that's well stated. That's a good argument. If the mods can make... Do you remember the appearance mods for the NPCs in Starfield? Like, it was, what was it, 2 weeks? It was like 2 weeks, wasn't it? It was a pretty short amount of time. The game comes out, and within a very small window of time, there's a mod that makes all the characters look better. I have a crazy idea. I have a crazy idea. Why don't you hire some of these mod teams, okay? You put them on a contract, and you get them to fix the fundamentals while you rebuild certain systems and why you build content and why you change the game itself. Too bad some of the modders abandoned. Yeah, some of the modders completely abandoned Starfield, which is a serious problem. But, money talks. They do hire modders. Oh, I know. I'm saying structurally, I know they do that, but I'm saying structurally what they would do is they would hire the modders and task them with the quality of life stuff. Bug squashing, polish, all of that. And then Bethesda could focus on the content, if that makes sense. Gavin Hillick with 10 months. If someone tells me they don't like a game, I believe them. What do you think is at the root for calling them a liar? Oh. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's a fair question. I think it's a good question because in general, there was like this rejection of a lot of the scores from the faithful. Starfield faithful, the Xbox faithful, whatever you want to call them. And I would say that, and I don't want to like sweep and speak for everybody. I think there are pockets of the Xbox loyal and the Xbox community that have been so convinced of certain things that everything outside of that bubble must be some kind of a conspiracy or an Xbox tax. Like, I genuinely believe like they're so it's like they're so insulated. It's like somebody who's grown up very sheltered. Have you ever seen those shows where like the people leave their Amish families, right? And their probably view of certain things in the world and certain technologies and certain things is probably so limited that certain things almost don't seem believable. Like if you told them, oh yeah, we have technology that can do X, Y, and Z, they might be like, you're pulling my leg. They would have a hard time believing you. I think there are people that have done that. Like they've shrunk down and they only get their news from certain sources. I saw a tweet the other day and I read it and I thought they were kidding around. It seems so satirical. Like it was literally basically claiming that the one side was failing and that Xbox was flourishing and outselling and all of this. And I was like, I literally thought it was satire, but then I read it and I read the replies and I'm like, there are people that believe this. which can get into a whole sociological discussion about the nature of technology and insulation and what it's doing to people, and what it does to what you believe is true and what you believe is false. Like, it's just, there's this whole thing going on. I think you can see it microcosmically in video games. I think people just only pull from one, they only drink from one well, and everything else is poison. So like they don't consider any other viewpoints. I genuinely think that's what happens. Sorry, I've got some resubs here. Yannet BT was 7 months at a member plus. Aren't review outlets basically shoehorned into giving good scores? Because if they don't, the Bethesda won't send them early codes in the future. I'm gonna, you know what? I swear to you, I want to do a series or a video on that. All right. Here's how you take back the review culture in gaming. Build a value system within your platform so that people come and want to read or watch your review even if it comes late. That's how you take back the review power from these gaming outlets and publishers who, if you step wrong, they won't give you a code. Well, build your value and your reliability and your trust with the public so much that you don't need the code or the game early. You can do it later and you'll still get support. That's how you take it back from the publishers and the developers. Like, does these guys, like, does Angry Joe or Skill Up or these guys with giant YouTube channel, their reviews come out weeks later, sometimes a month later, and they still get tons of views? Why? Because they have built and established their value outside of being first. If your value is that you're first, your value is tenuous and flimsy. That's your value, is that you're first? What if you're accurate? What if you're courageous? What if you're bold? What if you're honest? What if you're transparent? If those are your value tenets, then people are going to read your review even if it's a week later. The problem is all of these outlets, their value is flimsy. It's tenuous. They have to be first or no one cares what they have to say. Well, that says all you need to know about what they have to say. If you only care what they have to say if they're first, then what they have to say probably isn't all that valuable. It's pure transaction of information. Is it good? Is it buggy? Is it a disaster? No. Okay, now I can go buy the game with a reasonable amount of confidence. These outlets all gave it an 8. These outlets all gave it a 7. And then you go as a consumer and you feel more empowered to make your purchase. Talica with 22 months in the VIP. On my way to the 2-year mark. Love the gold badge, but red's more my color. Thank you so much, Talica. I appreciate it. Calling me out? I'm not even calling you out. I just said this to you the other day, and it triggered something in my brain. I was like, that right there is how these review outlets take back their power. Write the honest review. Say the thing that you really feel and think, and if you get blacklisted, so be it. Do you want to know what would make you more interesting as a platform? You would say, we didn't get a code for this big, highly anticipated game. Well, that makes you incredibly interesting. Gee, I wonder why they didn't get a code. Maybe we should check out their review when it hits. Maybe we should consider what they have to say. If these outlets were to take back that power from the publishers and from the developers, all you would have left is the mouthpieces. And over time, the mouthpieces would be seen for what they are. Oh, yeah, You're the outlets that get codes. Got it. You're the do-gooders. You're the ones that abide by the rules. You're the ones okay with quid pro quo, basically. Right? Like, that to me is how you flip everything upside down and say, enough is enough. The review outlets cannot be trusted because they're beholden to click rate. They're beholden to being first, not being accurate. And the only way to change that is for some of these outlets to be more bold and courageous, which obviously comes with risk. That comes with risk. You can't really be courageous if there's no risk. There's no threat. Well, that would change things in my mind. I don't have time. I don't have time, or I would do it, because I don't get codes. Number one, I'm not big enough. Number two, I'm blacklisted with a lot of companies, right? And number three, anytime I get in good with a company, all it takes is an email from somebody to get me blacklisted, because there's a lot of people in the industry that don't like me. It's already happened. So if I had time, I would do it. I just don't have time. I don't have time. If I had time to play the games and give substantive reviews, I would do it. But my value is more rooted in doing a live show and doing a podcast. Like, that's what people tune in for. If I had time to do that, I would, but like, that's not a world I can live in. I don't have a schedule that allows for that. There are people who give their life to the YouTube machine. I can't afford to do that. I've got kids, I have responsibilities. So I keep a normal work schedule. That doesn't allow for what's required. But these outlets can do it. It's what they do full time. They play games and they write about games full time. They're not having to stream for hours a day. And they also have staff, and there's a lot of them. Listen, if I was these outlets, you know what I would do? I would shrink as much as I can, which is obviously sad because you're letting people go. I would shrink as much as I can, and I would just start writing and making the reviews that I wanted to make. And if you didn't get codes, so be it. Just go out there and tell the world, we didn't get a code for that game. We'll post our review in a week. I wish outlets would demand publishers give them access to all versions of the game before agreeing to do a review. Don't listen to that Lono guy. He likes Rage's Battle of Los Angeles. That's right. His favorite Rage album is the worst one. It's so weird. Isn't that weird with music? I think this has happened with me with music pretty much every time. The Catalyst album is my favorite album. It really is. Whatever album, not every time, but for the most part, generally, the Catalyst album ends up being my favorite album. I feel like video games do that too. Whatever game got you into the franchise, a lot of the times ends up being your favorite. The only problem I see there is that you have to wait weeks to read a review. You might go out and buy a game blind. Yes, Skeeter, that certainly is a problem. The outlets are fighting an uphill battle because the user and the person that wants to buy the game is staring down the barrel of pre-order bonuses and pre-order incentives and shiny things. And we all know consumers have a really hard time saying no to shiny things. And so, the developers and the publishers are fighting a battle of attention. They need everybody's attention, and they also need your money. And so they're fighting for that. And in them fighting for that, they're actively working against consumers being accurately informed about the game. This is called... I don't know if it's conflict of interest, but it basically feels like a giant conflict of interest. Because the developers are trying to make a game, and they're fighting for shrinking attention in a world gone mad. Like, there's just so much going on. Everybody's doing something at once. Everybody's watching a show while playing a video game. Everybody's consuming YouTube while doing something else, listening to a podcast while doing something else, right? You don't even watch a TV show anymore. You watch the TV show and you're actively checking your phone. No, I don't have cameras in your house, but I know that you do it because I've done it from time to time, and I've had to stop doing it. It's like, I want to watch the show. I'm not watching the show. What am I doing? But because of that, that's what the developers are fighting against. Developers are fighting against this idea that we have to get people's attention and therefore we have to get their money. And one of the greatest things that's going to fight against that is anybody seeing a chip in the veneer or a flaw or a problem. If there's any hesitancy at all to buy our product, we're going to make less money. So, what are they going to do to the review outlets? What are they going to do to the gaming press? Well, they're going to treat the gaming press like an extension of their PR and their marketing. It's almost like they don't have a choice. It's not some giant, scheme or scam. They're just all seeking their best, and in seeking their best, they can't let you see an unvarnished version of the game. They need you to think that the game is pristine and amazing. And so outlets that are going to be more honest about those those chips in the paint and those flaws and those problems, well, don't send them a code. We'll have 10 other outlets lining up to give to give us a better score, or to just be nice and give us an 8 or a 9. Mr. Grimm with a $20 super chat tip says, this game should have been shrunk down to our solar system, which could have allowed planet-to-planet travel and bigger maps to explore, and also no other intelligent beings or aliens besides just humans was a huge missed opportunity. I don't like to get into the woulda, shoulda, coulda, because like there's so many things they could have done differently, right? They could have just made this game Fallout 5 and you would have been going to other planets to establish vaults, and then they could have done the New Game Plus could have been everything goes wrong and you go into cryo and then you wake up on a planet and everything has changed. I just basically gave, I think, a really great playbook for how they could make Fallout 5 anyways. And then maybe even incorporate some of the systems from Starfield. But I think that would have been an amazing way to do the game, and that would have been an amazing spin on New Game Plus, is that you go to all these planets to establish vaults to survive, and then something goes wrong at the end of the story, and you have to go into cryo, and then you wake up with all your skills and weapons for New Game Plus, and now you're basically in like almost like a part 2 of the game, and now you're going to all the planets, and they've dramatically changed. Enemies are different, they've mutated, they've changed, the planets have changed, everything is now different because you've been in cryo for, you know, a couple hundred years or something. There's your Fallout 5 New Game Plus playbook. Just do that. You could do that on Earth, honestly. You could do that on Earth. You don't need space travel to use that idea. A New Game Plus that follows cryo could be very, very cool. A 10 spot from Drake Parker says, they could remove some loading screens in an update. I have a mod that allows me to fly super fast in space, and as long as a planet or moon is visible, the landing spots load when I fly there. I mean, I appreciate the super chat. Thank you. I also appreciate the idea, again, echoing back to the fact that, like, well, mods could fix this game. You know, mods could fix this game. Yeah. But you know what that tells me? That tells me Bethesda could fix the game. Right? Bethesda could fix the game. If the mods can fix the game, if the mods can put quality of life improvements into the game within like the month of the game's launch, that communicates to me the people that own the property, the people that own the engine and have years of institutional knowledge with Creation Engine, they can fix the game. That's why I think a comeback is possible. That's why I think a Starfield redemption arc is possible. The modders prove it every time. Everyone's like, oh, the engine. But it's like, look at what the modders achieve with the engine. What are you talking about? Alex with the 10 spot says, the game is very much missing the handcrafted feel. They use too much procedural generation. I can get over procedural generation in a game with like a lot of planets, but then you've got to nail the other parts. You've got to nail the questing. You have to. That's what he was saying. He was saying the mods show it's possible. Yeah, he's saying they could remove the loading screens. I'm going beyond just removing loading screens. I'm like, look at every single mod, and that's a testimonial of you guys could really turn this game around. Isn't the problem, though, that Bethesda needs to move on to Elder Scrolls and can't afford the power to fix Starfield? This is why, earlier in the stream, I said they're facing their own CD Projekt Red moment. I believe that they are. I believe that if they want people to give a hoot about their Elder Scrolls game, I believe that if they want people to care about their next big project, which again is Elder Scrolls followed by Fallout 5, they're facing the same problem that CD Projekt Red faced. They are. How do you walk out and look at what CD Projekt Red did? They had the failed launch of Cyberpunk, and the people saying it wasn't that bad at launch, don't waste time listening to them. We all know it was a failure. We all know that it was an abysmal launch, all right? We know this. Okay. These are easily traced facts, all right? If it wasn't that bad, and if it was only really bad on consoles, then they wouldn't have been sued by their shareholders, okay? Their shares wouldn't have plummeted and have still not recovered if it was just not that bad. So ignore the revisionist history people on Cyberpunk, okay? Their love for the game blinds them to the reality of what actually happened back then. They don't recall the history of it very well. So CD Projekt Red was facing the exact same scenario. Well, we're going to go back to The Witcher, a beloved, our most beloved franchise. After The Witcher 3, it's their most beloved. Well, what's Bethesda getting ready to do? Well, they're getting ready to go back to their most beloved franchise, The Elder Scrolls. So they're facing the same problem. Well, the stinker that we just dropped, sure, it's not as bad as Cyberpunk was, but it's their, like I said in the monologue, it's their own personal Cyberpunk moment. They fell from the throne, and to climb back up, they can't just move on to the next project. They have to prove, look what we did to Starfield. How many people are going to buy The Witcher or going to be more confident in The Witcher after playing Phantom Liberty, or seeing Phantom Liberty get an award, or seeing Phantom Liberty celebrated and praised and highly reviewed? Given everything that had happened, I think that regains goodwill and trust from the consumers. Kirk says, Lono, people are going to care about Elder Scrolls regardless. That franchise is too big. At one level, you're not wrong, but at another level, the gaming market is becoming so saturated and so competitive. I don't think you can rest on your laurels. I don't think you can rest on your brand awareness and the size of your game, or the top of mind awareness of your game. I don't think you can rest on that anymore. By the time the Elder Scrolls game comes out, there will be so many other big, popular games that have risen out of nowhere, right? There'll be games that tried and failed. It's just the market is so much more saturated now. I think it's why, if you look at the success of Destiny, and other games have tried to pilot a course of live service success, it's much harder now given the competitive nature of the market. And Destiny arrived at a time when there were so few games out like that at all. Same could be said for Skyrim. It was super, super revolutionary. There was like almost nothing like that at the consumer console level, at that size and scope. You know, people are going to be like, but Oblivion, right? But as far as being accessible to the average consumer, like Skyrim completely changed what people thought a video game could be, and it had virtually no competition. There was nothing out like it at the time. Do you know how many open world giant RPGs there are out right now that have done amazing things? Whether you look at Horizon Forbidden West or Elden Ring or even a game like AC Valhalla, there's so many games out now that do the big giant open world RPG. Elder Scrolls can't just come out and be like, yeah, but we're Elder Scrolls. Okay, sure. In essence, inevitably, I honestly think that could hurt them more, because people are going to expect them to impact the market again, to blow the doors off again. Because it's like, well, all these other games have come out inspired by what you have done. So what do you got? If anything, I think that makes it harder for them. That can make it more challenging. It can. It isn't 2011 anymore. If a game comes out bad, people will move on faster these days. I think that's another very well-stated point, Mr. Grimm. Yes. People don't sit around and wait for patches. They'll get refunds on Steam. They'll just move on. Back then, you would just eat around the fat of a bug or a glitch. You'd be like, yeah, well, you know, it was like a bug or a glitch in a Nintendo game. What are you going to do? It's a cartridge. Like with Skyrim, I don't ever remember being like, oh, I can't believe that NPC just glitched out. I was like, oh, that was funny, and I moved on. Right? Falling through the map, glitching through the map, other different things that were happening, you know, getting sent into orbit by a troll, which wasn't a glitch. It was awesome. You see, like, I don't think today the tolerance level for bugs and glitches, I think, are at their best level. I think they're low, and they should be. I think the gaming populace's tolerance has gone way down for that crap. Why? Because I can put your game down and I can play something else. I don't need to put up with this. There's other games that will respect my time. It's why I stopped playing Jedi Survivor. I was like, I'm not going to play this. You don't respect my time. I spent full price on a next-gen only game, and it runs like a pile of garbage. See ya. I'll go play something else. Even Dragon's Dogma's an awesome RPG, and by the time Elder Scrolls comes out, they'll be fixed and have more competition will be out. Yeah, like, if Dragon's Dogma 2 can get a really solid quality patch, you've got Baldur's Gate 3, you've got, I don't know, if by the time the Elder Scrolls 6 comes out, there could be another big, massive, giant FromSoft game that comes out. There could be Assassin's Creed Red could be a triumph. We don't know. There's a lot of opportunities for other really big games to come out, and then you're going to come out and be like, okay, well, what do you have to offer? If it's just more, everybody's like, oh, it just needs to be more Elder Scrolls. I'm sorry, I don't know if that's going to be enough. I think it would be a successful game if it was just more Elder Scrolls. Okay, it would likely be financially successful, but I don't think people would just overlook if there were glaring problems, bugs, glitches, if the creation engine is extremely, is showing its age even more, because it's likely 4 or 5 years away minimum. So you got to imagine playing the Elder Scrolls 6 in 2029. Are you going to put up with a dated feeling engine? Are you going to put up with performance issues? Are you going to put up with frame rate issues? No, you're not. Are you kidding me? No one. That's the thing. No one is putting up with it now. They're certainly not going to put up with it in the future. By the way, Eugene, your name is incredible. I get the reference, too. I miss the rains down in Africa. We will be completely different people with different tastes and expectations by the time this game releases. Elder Scrolls 6 is targeting 2026, 2027. Oh, my gosh. There's no way. 3 years of dev for an Elder Scrolls game? That doesn't even seem... That seems like... Are you saying that as a guess? Or are you saying that because you heard something? I'm, like, stammering thinking about that. I'm like, there's no way. There is literally no way. Starfield can't diminish the Elder Scrolls popularity more than Skyrim bolsters it. I felt like the name is more than enough to sell game quality to another... I'm sorry. I feel like the name is more than enough to sell. Game quality is another matter. They need Elder Scrolls 6 to be great, not Starfield. Okay, let me ask you something, Kirk. I need you to theorize then... Why are they dedicating all this time to updates and fixes? Is it purely for the Shattered Space DLC? Is it because they are prepping the game for PS5? Or is it because they really feel we have to re-earn public trust? This game fell short. It's not something... I don't think they're proud of the quality of Starfield. They would never come out and say that, but when has Bethesda ever said we're going to update the game every 6 weeks next year? They didn't do that with Fallout. They were like, yep, you're going to get an update every 6 weeks. Every month and a half, you're getting an update. You're getting a patch. What? No, that's never been a thing. The only time we've seen a game do this is when? When have we seen a developer dedicate rhythmic updates and improvements? When? You know the games I'm going to say. We've seen it with Cyberpunk, and we've seen it with No Man's Sky, and I would even argue that we saw it with Destiny. Its updates were maybe more spread out, but there was still a concerted effort to improve, fix, and rework Destiny. But Cyberpunk and No Man's Sky are games that, in my mind, if you look at the landscape of video games, you're like, well, what games have done this? We're going to update this game regularly. What games have pushed out a patch that fixed over 500 problems? What games have done that? I would say Cyberpunk's the only game I can think of that comes even close to your CVS size list of fixes in a patch. I think Cyberpunk had fixes and patches that were that significant. That signals to me that they view the game in a similar way. They're like, we need this game to be better. I think it's all of the above. To say it's mandatory for Elder Scrolls to get hype or sales is wild to me. It is wild because I didn't say that. That's a straw man. I did not say it's mandatory. I said they feel the need to win back the public's trust. And as I said, I think the Elder Scrolls will be financially successful no matter what, because it is Leviathan. It's monolithic in the gaming world. But I'm telling you, there will be a decreased or diminished amount of demand of sales and interest if the Starfield was just lying in tatters on the ground. Think about it like this. If the road to Elder Scrolls is paved partially by a bunch of great and celebratory fixes to Starfield. Think about the headlines. Starfield, completely different game. Starfield's DLC Shattered Space is a triumph. Those are great headlines leading to the Elder Scrolls 6. Why? Because you're putting Bethesda into the public's eye in a positive light. I never said it was mandatory. I said they feel the need. I actually think they do need to win back public trust and confidence. I do. I don't think they need that for sales. Like, Elder Scrolls 6 will be a financial failure if they don't win back public trust. But I think they're facing the exact same scenario that CD Projekt Red was facing. If we want to get people to buy into The Witcher, if we want people to be confident in The Witcher and what we do next with it, we have got to win back public confidence with Cyberpunk. I think we're facing the exact same scenario here. It's almost 1-to-1 in how it matches. Then I don't. You say then that I don't agree with. Starfield can be mid and Elder Scrolls won't sell less. That's my take. I think I'm just saying it differently than that. I'm saying that they will sell more if they regain public trust. There will be a lot of fence sitters, and people are like, yeah, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fallout 76, bleh. It was a terrible launch. Yeah, they fixed it. So what? Starfield, terrible launch. Bleh. And they didn't really fix it. I'm waiting. There would be a lot of fence sitters. I think there would be. Especially with the number of games that are going to come out between now and then. The market's very competitive. People are busy. People's attention spans are short. True Witty with 12 months says, it'll be hard to topple the Elder Scrolls Skyrim. Like, if it's not bigger games than Dragon's Dogma 2 and other big games like Horizon Forbidden West, it still has loading screens. Oh, if it still has loading screens in 30, I think that's a non-negotiable at this point. That's going to be... You know what their biggest challenge for the Elder Scrolls is? I think the biggest challenge for the Elder Scrolls 6, this is going to be really weird to say this, but this is what I think. I think the greatest challenge for the Elder Scrolls 6 is Todd Howard, because the interview he did with Lex Friedman and his opinion and his view of 30 FPS, I believe that will feel so outdated by the time the Elder Scrolls 6 comes out. He is the game's greatest obstacle. He has to evolve and adapt, or he will hurt the game. I believe that. That opinion, that idea, that viewpoint, that'll feel like an ancient relic by the time the Elder Scrolls 6 comes out. Imagine Todd Howard sitting down in 2028 and being like, yeah, we still think 30 FPS is okay as long as the game is running well. He might as well be an albatross around the neck of Elder Scrolls if he thinks that. He has got to abandon that viewpoint. No one's going to accept that in 2028 or 2029. They're not going to accept that. They're like, you're out of your mind. I'm like, what are you talking about? They're like, almost a decade ago in 2020 and in 2019, a decade ago, we were promised 60 FPS standard. You can't walk out in 2028 and 2029, a decade later, after all the next-gen marketing, after all the Xbox Series X and PS5 marketing, you can't walk out a decade later and be like, we think 30 is fine. You're going to look dumb. It's already happening. It already is hurting games with their PR. It hurt Gotham Knights. It hurt Redfall. We got an apology about 60 FPS with Redfall, and it's going to hurt Hellblade too. It doesn't work. If he's not willing to budge on that, I'm telling you, he's Elder Scrolls' greatest obstacle. Yeah, it just works. Creative direction. Yeah, creative decision. Right. Guys, do me a favor. Let's set our sights on 300 likes. There's been close to around 600 people here for the last 20 minutes or so. I appreciate you deciding to tune in. If you like the content, hit subscribe. Subscribing is totally free. and then I'll be in your feed all week long. Now, if you ever turn on YouTube and I'm not live, check your subscriptions tab. Sometimes I'm not on your homepage, but I do a live stream Monday through Friday. I will be doing a stream with Kirk in about 50 minutes. We'll be talking about Stellar Blade. We're going to be asking the question, will Stellar Blade be good? Because Kirk had a slightly different experience than I did with the demo, so you're not going to want to miss that. But help us get to 300 likes. The more likes a video gets, it gets to meet more people. That gets more people in here to talk with us. And if you haven't yet, you can become a member or you can gift a member. You do not have to wait for somebody to gift a member to you. If you click join, you can pick that $5 tier. You get into all of the extra content. There's only one segment you don't come to, and that's a Friday VIP stream. We now made it to where gifted members, the $5 tier, gets in everything. If you opt for Members Plus at $6, we are going to start maybe featuring extra things for you that we're going to work on and maybe brainstorm about this week. But you can also just watch the stream every day. If you listen, lurk, like, and subscribe, those are free options that supports the stream, and you might get a gifted like you just did from, I can't remember how to spell your name, Michael. No, it's Mickle. Mickle, thank you so much. I swear, if I got it wrong again, I'm doubling down. It's Mickle. Still can't believe Ninja Theory used the old cinematic lie about 30 FPS. The PR guy who came up with that should be fired. And another one comes in. Thank you so much, Mickle. I swear, we've gone through this so many times, and then I second guess myself. Oh, man. Thank you so much for gifting those members. Stellar Cakes doesn't have boats, does it? That's why Kirk doesn't like it. I remember the physics are tied to Elder Scrolls Skyrim. Does anyone remember this? You can screw that game if you up the FPS. Yo, good to see you in chat, Mitch. Oh, hang on, that got recalled. I said earlier, hang on, I'm going to scroll up a little bit. No, it's Michael. This is just our gag now. It is Michael. Dadgummit. I literally got it. I literally got it. And then I messed it up. Anyways, I was going to scroll up and read. Patrick Q said, I said earlier that Bethesda was incapable of making a next-gen game. I'm going to amend that statement to Todd specifically is incapable. Stonespire gifts a member and takes us to 14. I know what Stone's going to do. I can feel it. I know what you're going to do. And it goes to Mitch. Hey, welcome to the members, Mitch. To be honest with you, says Angel, if Starfield comes out for the PS5, I'll buy it. I hear on PC, they never fix any of the problems. I'll never spend $70 on that game that is not fixed. Yeah, I mean, there are still people that think it's ridiculous, and you know they strongly disagree and even ridicule me for saying that I believe that Starfield's coming to PlayStation. I do. And Stonespire, there it is. I knew what you were doing. He takes it to 15 out of 25. He's tempting a 10 bomb. He tried this earlier for the 20 bomb. We'll see if he can tempt one of the big boys to drop a 10 bomb all the way to 25. Your guys' weekly goal is huge this week. We no longer go for total member count because that moves too much. If you can get 500 total members this week, we will do a community game night on Friday, and Creature has to come, and we're going to make him play Fall Guys. Please help me do that. He will not show up. He will not be a part of the show if we don't hit the goal. And he's never played Fall Guys. Come on. I think we can really have fun with these community game nights. You guys just got to dig deep, man. Anyways. The engine is odd when it comes to the frames and the physics. Go look up videos on Skyrim. Well, Timothy, it's not the only engine like that. There were issues in Destiny's engine where like damage was tied to FPS. There was issues with Horizon Zero Dawn and Decima when they built it, and like all the clothing animations were like rooted or linked to 30 FPS or something. So when you could increase the FPS on PC, it acted really weird. I don't think that's unique to the Creation engine. And a 10 bomb from Kraos. He does it. He takes us to 25. He's like, come on, boys. Many hands make light work. If a bunch of you go crazy this week, I know we can hit it. We haven't had a week that big in a long time. 500 members is a tall order, but I believe that we can achieve it. And you guys have already taken a chunk out of it today with 25 members, and I now owe you guys 5. Every 25, I give 5. There's the Agents of Chaos from Risic. He pushes us past, which means the next milestone is now 50. And I'm 50. There it is. He's like, we're not going to sit on 25. Thank you, Rissick. There's the 5 I owe. If you hit 50, I owe you 5 more. Thank you so much. ID at Xbox is going to do a showcase on the 29th at 10 a.m. Pacific. So that's 1 p.m. in the afternoon Eastern time. New details on upcoming games like Dungeons of Hinterberg, 33 Immortals, and Lost Records, Bloom and Rage. I think they're going to save Silksong for the showcase because everybody's going to think that Silksong's going to be there because I believe that Team Cherry has a marketing deal with Xbox. A 10 spot from Benjamin says, Starfield had incomplete survival mechanics, food, afflictions, resistance, maps, loading screens. An update needs to integrate a seamless planetary orbit to transition, including a playable grav drive. Yeah, I mean, that would be interesting if they really pushed. And the top of my chat is like freaking out. It's like doubling up on the gifteds and the members all of a sudden. That would be really interesting if they like doubled down or really invested more heavily in the survival aspects of the game. I don't know if that would go over that well. You know, this guy's saying that Fallout 4 is still broken on consoles. This guy's responding to my monologue. He says, here's to hoping. Starfield has a lot of positive aspects that rarely get mentioned. Sadly, the negatives overshadow the positive. I started to enjoy it, but there was too much to eat around. I did. I started to enjoy Starfield, but there was just too much to eat around. Did you miss the news? Bethesda fans are fully into Fallout 4 and Fallout 76 nowadays. Starfield's bottom of the list. It's just bad. That will make coming back all the better if they pull off a Starfield comeback moment. I think if people are playing those games and they come back, I think it'll make it all the sweeter. And Patrick Q gifts member and takes us to 27 on the day. Thank you so much, Patrick Q. They were afraid. People were scared of the survival elements. I want a survival mode. Oh, you know, I remember the interview where Todd said that they didn't want to have people like running out of gas because they felt like, I forget the way that he phrased it, right? Miles High with 24 months of members says happy anniversary. That's a VIP, and that's 2 entire years. Thank you so much. I don't remember Starfield ever advertising No Man's Sky's planet to orbital traversal mechanic. Here's the problem, Sven. Let me talk to you guys a little bit about the process that I went through when I was writing that monologue. I hope you guys enjoyed that upload because I really tried to do something different in the way that I wrote it and in the way that I talked about it. And it was really enjoyable. But it was almost like a retrospective on the game's marketing. Unintentionally, it was a retrospective. As I was writing that and going back and looking at those trailers, I was like, you know what? 30 FPS really distracted. 30 FPS in the loading screens really distracted from the fact that they sold us a bill of goods. Like the first trailer where you see the ship on the planet and she's in the cockpit and she's moving monitors and making minor adjustments. She's walked through this pristine, I mean, almost unbelievable internals of a ship. That right there, it's you go back and you look at it and it's like that game doesn't exist. The game that in that trailer, it doesn't exist. When the first gameplay trailer came out, we all fixated on some of the performance issues and the shading, and we were all talking about 30 FPS. Nobody went back and was like, go back and look at the initial teaser trailer. It was an in-engine, and it was, what is this game going to be? Oh my gosh. The centrality of the first, not the teaser where they just show us outer space. That was the announcement trailer. So it goes announcement, teaser, gameplay. Okay, so ignore the announcement, and I want you to ignore the gameplay. So announcement, teaser. Just fixate on the teaser. They planted a seed in everybody's mind And the centrality of that seed and the centrality of that trailer is getting into a ship, boarding the ship, walking through the ship, and getting the ship ready to take off. I don't think you can do that and then be like, yeah, but we're not really going to have you guys take off on the planets or land on the planets. They were selling what looked like a significant amount of space sim. She's like adjusting, pre-flight checks and knobs and click this and poke that and touch the third and none of that's in the game. You go and you sit down and you take off, and then that's it. That's just a loading screen. And then when you're out in outer space, I will admit, some of the mechanics of flight are cool, but even that, it's just like, it's half-baked. It's like, yeah, you can get in some fights. It's not really centrality to the game. There's no real reason to fly around. You just point and load and travel, loading screen, travel, loading screen. So you can't go back to the inception and like plant that seed in people's minds. This is the game you're going to play. It's this mysterious, enigmatic game where the in-engine footage looks bonkers and you've got this expansive experience in this spaceship. And then what they sell you is you can't even load into the ship. You go into the belly of the ship, loading screen up into the game. Sit down in the cockpit, loading screen into outer space. Travel to another place, loading screen to there. And it's like, that right there, I think if you go back and you do a retrospective on the marketing, like the game fell so far below what they initially planted in everyone's minds. And that's the danger of marketing your game. You have to think, what are people going to think about our game when we show them this trailer? You go back to the first Avowed trailer. Crazy looking graphics, flying flaming arrows, and suddenly somebody's in a cave, and up comes a hand and a sword, and it looks like next-gen Skyrim, and you're like, oh my gosh, and the game looks nothing like that. You have to be so careful these days with how you advertise your game, because it plants seeds. It sets expectations. Kirk says, you can do all that if you want to sit down and take off in first person, but it definitely just encourages you as a design point to just click and go and warp here, for sure. I wish you could do more things inside the ship. Like, I want to feel like the ship is meant for more besides just travel, cargo, and the occasional dogfights. It reminds me of when Destiny 2 launched. And I said, it felt like a game full of concepts. Destiny 2 felt like a game full of concepts. The adventures on the planet, they were like concepts. They weren't fleshed out. There was nothing to them. Bounties, same deal. There's nothing to these. We've done this before. Not having random rolls on the guns. It made the gun system feel like an initial concept. I said that like Destiny 2 to me was like the skeleton of a brontosaurus. A big giant dinosaur. I'm going to get corrected by the dino nerds. There's actually no such thing as a brontosaurus. Brachiosaurus? Anyways. To me, that's what it was. It was this giant skeleton with no meat on the bones. It was like going up and seeing the scaffolding for a building or a house and being like, there's no walls, there's nothing. I can see how big this building will be, but right now it's just the scaffolding. There's a lot in Starfield that feels that way. It's like, okay, yeah, you added space flight and dogfights, but it doesn't feel fleshed out. It feels like it's just like a concept. It's like, here, play this. Tell us what you think. Oh, you like it? Okay, cool. And then that's all they give you. It's like, okay, what was the point of that? It's like loading into your ship and walking around your ship. It's like, okay. What's the point of all that instrumentation and all that cool fancy stuff that you showed in the cockpit when the first trailer came out? What's the point of all of it? Well, nothing. I mean, it's just for appearance's sakes. Yeah, you don't even really need to fly around. You don't even really need to take off and land. You don't do any of that. You don't do any of that. And again, that's what the first trailer showed. Oh, is Brontosaurus actually valid again? It's like when a planet's no longer a planet, and then one day we'll call it a planet again, right? You know? You also can't have prisoners in the brig, even though there's plenty of hostage bounty missions. The ships are useless beside aesthetics and dogfighting, basically. Like I said, it feels like it's in its conceptual phase. It feels like it never got out of its conceptual phase. And I think this happens in games that go too broad. The butter is just spread too thin on the bread. It's spread too thin. You know, and so every system that gets put in the game ends up being shallow or uninteresting or like, why is this even here? And I feel like Cyberpunk had similar issues when it launched. A lot of its systems seemed to lack thought, polish, and depth, and I believe it was because they fell prey to scope creep. And when you fall prey to scope creep, I mean, think about it from this perspective. When you land on the planets and you're going around on the planets, the lack of handcrafted and the procedural generation, right? When you experience that, I think you'd be okay with that if the general gameplay loop was enjoyable, right? Dude, God of War does the same thing with loading screens. Traveling through the realms is loading screens. I'm going to read your comment like it's a joke because it is. That's not even worth having a discussion about. The comparison there is silly and you know it. I had a discussion on Steam, open on how it felt like the game was shifted in its setting late in development. Like there were supposed to be more vehicles and mechs, but they couldn't get it working. I mean, maybe that could be one of the really big updates. You know? That could be a big update. You suddenly do this awesome vehicular updates to the game. Rovers, and I thought they said that mechs weren't coming, but you could do rovers, and maybe you could do low atmosphere flight vehicles, like almost like a speeder maybe as well. Not just low atmosphere flight, but just something to traverse across the world. I think the problem with that is the areas that they drop you in they might not be big enough to warrant a vehicle. You're going to be hitting those barriers a lot faster. I really enjoyed Starfield for what it was, but I was actually stunned with how the tile sets they had for different installations on planets. I was seeing repeats so fast my jaw dropped. Yeah, I was watching a Luke Stevens video and he talked about that. Just how much was reused. How many assets, how many things I saw that, like you just saw it repeated over and over. I remember when No Man's Sky first came out, it was like that. Like you'd land on a planet and you'd be like, there's that structure, there's that structure. There's that structure. Like, you just recognize them almost immediately. Did I get a recap? Yes, I will give you a recap. Guys, do me a favor. We were setting our sights on 300 likes. A lot of folks aren't doing it, and you're either lurking, you might be watching on a TV. If you're watching on a TV, I understand. YouTube said that the viewership on TV has gone up significantly, and it's a pain in the rear end to, like, log in and hit a like button on a TV. If you're able to, on a mobile or a browser, take a second. Especially on mobile, you have to minimize the chat. Make sure you push that thumbs up button. It does help the video. I know a lot of y'all come in and you lurk and you treat me like a radio show. Make sure you always do that ritual. It really does help. It really does help. Luke Stevens complaining about copy pasting. Couldn't resist. Yeah. But at least he owned up. He owned up to doing it and is, claimed to be better, I would say that if you're going to copy paste content that you would call that low effort, but what do I know about low effort content? anyways, he was the one that pulled developers and asked them if they thought the game could be saved. The general consensus from the 90-something devs and people in the industry or engineers and stuff, the general consensus seemed to be a pretty significant lack of confidence in the creation engine. That seemed to be a general consensus, which is a shame because that has nothing to do with Bethesda's skills. That has nothing to do with Bethesda's, vision. You could be You could be an amazing bowler, but if I hand you a coconut or a football, you know, let's make it a better analogy. You could be an amazing bowler, but if I hand you a soccer ball, it's really going to limit how fast the ball can travel and how effectively it can knock the pins down. Like, I don't care how good you are. You know, oh, the craftsman never blames his tools. If the tool is crappy, yes, you would. Like, that platitude is stupid. Talk to an actual carpenter and ask them, like, you know, if your tool was faulty and not working well, would you use it on a job? And he'd be like, no, I'd replace it. You know, I would replace it. So if you're like, you know, a world-class bowler, and I'm like, yeah, sorry, you're going to have to use a soccer ball, you would have a right to be like, I'm not going to be able to do all the things that I would like to do. I'm not going to be able to throw the ball as fast and as hard as, you know, the terminal velocity of a soccer ball versus a bowling ball. Like, it's not going to be an effective tool for the job. Oh, you're behind. The silly comment about the God of War loading screens? Yeah. Crafty Martin with 10 months says, good afternoon and evening, Lone, and everyone. Good afternoon, Crafty. Thanks for coming back in and renewing that membership for 10 months. Seriously, story locations should have at least been unique and not repeated. That is some of that in some shows laziness. That are limitations of the engine. I don't know if reusing assets is a sign of laziness or a sign of the engine. I think it's a sign of how large that they had to make the game. I think it was unavoidable. I do. I think when you hit, and this is something that Ronin has done a really good job of. I've actually been impressed by this in Ronin. The encampments don't feel samey and similar. There's a lot of verticality. There's a lot of geographical, like, elevation differences in just a camp compared to the last one, which is really, really impressive. Terminal velocity, we bowling with planes now? Well, I mean, obviously, terminal velocity is going to affect how fast you can throw something and how effective it's going to be within the realm of physics to strike the pins, right? Something with a greater terminal velocity can travel faster, can it not? You can only throw a soccer ball so fast, right? I don't think did I improperly use that? Infinite with 22 months in a VIP. Starfield needs quality of life improvements. What I'll always defend it for is the world building in the universe. Building a new IP in a space game is a daunting task, and BGS gets a lot of undeserved heat for. But story locations? Right, that's why I cited Ronin. Like, just little camps that you have to go in, like when you go into a part of the map, you go into a region, and you have to reset public order. Like, the little camps, they feel organically placed in the world. It's like, yep, this is what would have happened. These guys would have taken over this street corner, or this little group of buildings, or, oh, they're out in the middle of nowhere, but it's like a horse farm, or, oh, it's a settlement at the base of a mountain, or, like, it feels genuine, and those are just like random encampments in Ronin. And that's an open world game. It's a pretty gigantic game. There's 3, as far as I can tell, there's 3 chapters, and there is 3 maps. I believe I hit 87%. I'm going to try my best to beat that game this week before Stellar Blade comes out. It's going to be really difficult because Tales of Kinseras tomorrow, I'm going to stream that, and then we're going to stream the Fallout update. I swear there's something Wednesday. I can't remember now. Terminal velocity has to do with how fast something reaches the max speed at which something falls. Right, I know that. I learned that on Mythbusters, and it was my assumption that something with a greater terminal velocity could also then therefore be thrown faster. Right? Like the terminal velocity of a baseball versus a cotton ball translates into, I can throw the baseball faster than the cotton ball. The terminal velocity of a bowling ball versus a soccer ball would be greater, which then would translate to me meaning I can throw it faster. As long as you're strong enough, right? There'd be limitations of strength, like the terminal velocity of a boulder being greater than the cotton ball doesn't really matter because I can't throw the boulder. But if I could, like with the trebuchet or something, then it would travel faster than the cotton ball. That's just logically what I did in my brain. I was like, I just connected those dots very quickly, and I was like, yeah, it's got a greater terminal velocity, which translates into being able to throw it faster. I could be incorrect. I'm not a physics major, but I I was making a logical leap. That's why you need me to review Stellar Blade. Well, I'm going to play it over the weekend. I'm not going to be able to play it enough for a review, though. It only applies to falling objects. I think that's the confusion. Is there any principle within physics that connects the two? The terminal velocity and how fast something can be thrown, or how fast something can be used as a projectile? Are those physical properties related? Salty Gamer with 22 months in a VIP. I really believe Bethesda can bring Starfield back to life. For example, take a look at Fallout 76, which was a disaster upon launch but was greatly improved. I was a physics major, and I'm sorry that I just showed up. How did we get here again? I was explaining that if you had a world-class bowler, he's super talented, and you handed him a soccer ball, it would greatly diminish his ability to bowl and knock the pins down. So the talent at Bethesda is only as good as the engine allows them to be, right? They're only as good as the world allows them to be. Like, they're only going to be able to be as good as the engine allows them to be. Like, if they're a world-class bowler and we hand them a soccer ball, it's going to limit. What was the question? I logically thought that if something had greater terminal velocity, a bowling ball versus a soccer ball, it could then also therefore be thrown faster and stronger. Like, the bowling ball can be thrown faster and harder and more efficiently in relation to the fact that it actually does have a faster terminal velocity. You're thinking force. Is not terminal velocity related to maximum force? Wouldn't they be related in some way? Soccer ball has less mass, and that's why it wouldn't be as good at knocking down the pins. Is mass not related to terminal velocity? I hadn't seen that Mythbusters episode in a long time. That my brain just logically connected the two dots, maybe incorrectly. I might be incorrect. I just thought, oh, yeah, all of the properties that make something have greater terminal velocity would also then be related to how fast it can be thrown and how forceful it hits the pins. Just a lot of fluff. There's not even a lot of actual function increase. I can sit with my newlywed on Paradiso and sit and relax with Terrabrew or Tranquilla. I'm not sure what you're talking about, True SSJ Havoc. It's one number. I'm asking is if it's related to how fast something can be thrown. It's not related? Acceleration is the first derivative of velocity, and force is mass times acceleration, so there is a relation. There we go. A nerd has saved me. I was just saying there was a relationship, that's all. Like, would you find on average objects with greater terminal velocity also being then, like, you could throw them with greater force, right? I was just thinking that those two were related, that's all. I think you're just using the word terminal where it isn't necessary. Velocity, mass, acceleration, those are the terms related to how fast something can be thrown. Okay. I got a physics lesson today for making the example of if you handed a soccer ball to a professional bowler, it would limit how well he could bowl. In the analogy, the creation engine could be the soccer ball. It could be a limiting, tool that no matter how visionary or creative Bethesda is, the creation engine is going to limit the speed, the efficacy, and the creativity of what they can do. We're confusing air resistance and terminal velocity. A heavier object has more momentum. Imagine Lono calling someone else a nerd. There is no relation. An object's max terminal velocity has nothing to do with how fast it can be thrown. Would there be any correlation at all? So there's no causative relationship. Is there a correlation between the two? Wouldn't there be, again, a correlation between the bowling ball versus the cotton ball, right? The baseball versus the cotton ball. Is there not a correlation there that the ones that have greater terminal velocity could then also, therefore, the correlating fact would be they can be thrown faster as well. They can have more force when thrown. The analogy is still perfect. Terminal velocity is the maximum speed an object can hit given its shape and orientation. So terminal velocity isn't related to the maximum velocity at which it can be thrown. Chat, be genius. Oh, maximum ferocity. I'm Starfield. They need to allow for player mids. Mods, player mods. Well, that's supposed to be coming, is it not? With the what's it called? Oh my gosh, it just left my brain. You can throw any object at any speed. Yeah, a speed's not the right word. Force, greater force. What's it? What's the term then when you the bowling ball hits the pins harder? If you loaded a soccer ball and a bowling ball in a machine and it threw them, rolled them at the exact same miles per hour, one hits with greater force. Is that the right word? Am I using creation kit? Creation club. I knew creation kit wasn't right. Creation club. Thank you, Bold Alpha Wolf. What's the word that you would use? The bowling ball hits with greater is it force? They both travel at, let's say, 60 miles an hour from this machine that we've created. The soccer ball and the bowling ball both travel at 60 miles an hour. Boom, boom. One hits with greater force, correct? We go back to discussing administrative law. Momentum. Momentum and not force? Murph Dog saying it's force. Bowling ball has greater force because it has higher mass. Okay. That's all I was trying to convey, and I thought that that was related to terminal velocity. I thought having the higher mass, as well as like what AOZ said, the shape of the item and its mass is what led to greater terminal velocity. Like an incredibly dense ball is going to fall faster than a piece of paper. Less mass and less aerodynamic. So the piece of paper is going to flutter, and the incredibly dense steel ball is going to just go straight down and go significantly faster. Ooh. Keep losing my comments? What do you mean? Are they getting pushed out of the chat, or... Oh, hang on. Part 1. Technically, they didn't make the game that big. One city per planet, procedural generation that has no consistency or real connection. It's not that big in retrospect, just a lot of fluff. There's not even a lot of actual function increase. Okay, I get what you're saying, True SSJ. You're basically saying that procedural generation was employed, and yet they still didn't really build that big of a game. Right? I get what you're saying. It's like, yes, they used procedural generation, and yes, quantitatively, there are lots of planets, but you're basically arguing they didn't even really build that big of a game. It in execution, it feels small. It's not actually, they're not pulling off the illusion. Because video games are an illusion. It's magic, is it not? The idea that you're in a world that feels big, and it's not. It's in actuality, it's microscopic. It's data points on a hard drive. Like, if you really think about it, right? Like, all video games are an illusion. It's all magic tricks. It's all smoke and mirrors to make you think an area is big. Whether it's through VR or a skybox or draw distance or whatever they're doing with the camera and the fog and the lighting effects and all of that, it's all a trick to make your brain think, whoa, this place is huge. But when a game fails to do that, because it's like, this is, I think, where Starfield needs to consider how much they let us see behind the curtain. Repeated assets, barriers on the planets, walls, loading screens out the waz, that we're constantly reminded, this is a video game. This is a video game. It's like somebody's coming over the loudspeaker in the Truman Show. This is a TV show. This is a TV show. Quiet on the set. That you wouldn't have ever gotten immersed in. Truman would have never been like, yeah, this is real life, if there was constant speaker announcements about, we need the set crew to come over to the football field to get ready for the play today, and we'd be like, what was that? Oh, nothing, Truman. You're just hearing things. Like, constantly being reminded that it was a TV show would have ruined it as a TV show. Constantly being reminded, hey, this is a video game. Hey, this is a video game. That's constantly taking you out of the game and not letting you get immersed. Even when a game performs inconsistently like Rise of the Ronin, when I hop on my horse and I ride to the other side of an area, I'm only minutely reminded that it's a video game when there's a stutter or a hitch or a frame. But if they would have been like, welcome to the new region, you have to load into it, and here's a loading screen. If I had to do that every time I traversed from one region to the other, it takes you out of the game too much. What's crazy to me is that Bethesda released a game as buggy as it is and managed to hide it properly. The patch last month had over 400 bug fixes. Yeah, I remember when we were told it was going to be their least buggy launch yet. And I was like, can everyone stop? Can we stop? Can we stop the recording? Just bring the house lights up. Bring them up. Let's have a talk. Is that really a bragging point? That'd be like somebody saying, I'm really going to give it my all tomorrow on the court. I'm going to do my best to not foul out. I fouled out 7 games in a row. But listen, I'm committed. I'm going to give it my all. I'm going to do my best to not foul out tomorrow. It's like, wow, way to do the bare minimum, bud. What? It's the least buggiest game? I was like, why is this? This is a headline? Like, it's like, come on, man. A football player. Listen, I've gotten ejected from 6 games in a row for throwing punches. I'm going to do my absolute best tomorrow. It'll be the least amount of punches thrown in a football game of my career, okay? I might throw 2 little jabs, no haymakers, no uppercuts, okay? Least amount of punches thrown. What's fouling out? It's tantamount to a red card, Hilly. Have they added the city maps yet? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I'm pulling for the game. I actually am one of the few. My tweet, all right, the people didn't agree with me, all right? And I didn't agree with Red Dragon when he said what he said about Cyberpunk. He and I didn't see eye to eye on that. I feel like he's kind of he's doing the revisionist history about Cyberpunk. 30,000 views. I said, does Starfield need a redemption arc? Can it achieve a comeback in your opinion? People were largely split. Draymond Green energy right there. I don't even watch the NBA and I know who he is. He doesn't throw elbows. He throws arms. Like I've seen clips. Like that's not even an elbow. It's not like a, it's just an arm. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to take it to the next level in the next game, y'all. Throwing elbows, that's for bozos. I'm going to be throwing some arms out there, all right? Just whole chops, They're I hit my freaking microphone. Just air chops, What's going on out there? What are you doing? Oh. Yeah, chokeholds, nut checks. Just, what he needs to do? I tell you where his career path should I just naturally should just land in WWE. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're treating the basketball court that way already. You know what I mean? Just go see what the WWE can do with you, all right? You're allowed to punch, slap, and choke over there. You'll be right at home. You'll fit right in. I don't even watch basketball, and I've seen the clips. I'm like, what's going on over there? People are taking their life into their own hands getting on the court with that guy, Like, better watch out. He's going to get you. All right, I'm setting up I'm going to set up the show with Kirk and I, we talking Stellar Blade. We're asking the question, will this be good? He had a very different experience than I did with the game. He didn't seem as impressed as I was. I actually want to see. He spent a little bit more time with it. I think his tune may have gone through a bit of a metamorphosis. We'll see where he ended up landing. It might have been like an adjustment period. I felt similarly. You know, it took me a while to get my footing in the game. Took me a moment. It's the groin kicks, the punches, and the headlocks that make him known. He could probably make bank, you know, if he gets completely kicked out of the NBA. Just, you know, he's got an amazing fallback plan. Just WWE, baby. All right, redirect. I just scheduled it, Kirk. Give me 1 second. Share? No, I like the share link from the dashboard. The public share link is like a mile long. Okay. You like Skull and Bones? Hey. Everybody's got a game they like that, you know, other people don't like. Now, some of us admit when, you know, it doesn't pan out. Like, I admitted it with Kill the Justice League. Kirk will get there one day, you know. He'll wake up and be like, but why's the rum gone? And he'll be like, yeah, this game's pretty bad. It'll hit him. It'll hit him. You're allowed to like those games, you know? You're allowed to like those games. We all have those games that people are like, why do you like that game? You know? You got to bounce later. All right, see ya. Oh, I don't know if Creature, did you make us a Stellar Blade scene? I don't, if you did, I don't have it yet. I don't necessarily need it, but I don't know if I have a plain scene for the show with Kirk. I don't know if I have it. Only so many trees you can hunt with your boat before it gets stale. I enjoyed Biomutant, so I have zero credibility. Yeah, Biomutant was one I was going to use as an example earlier when I was talking about a game that spread itself too thin. Biomutant was certainly a game where I felt like they just threw everything in. They're like, yeah, throw that in, like every system you could possibly think of in a game, and it just ends up diluting every single system. Bethesda thought way too small. This game doesn't seem to be planned correctly. See, I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know if I agree, like, well, they didn't plan well enough, right? It's just way too small. I honestly feel like the opposite happened. Physicist, 20 minutes late. I was driving. The terminal velocity statement was correct. The word you're looking for is kinetic energy, mass times velocity. A bowling ball has more mass, which equals more kinetic energy. Air resistance describes how much of that kinetic energy is lost moving those pesky molecules, air molecules, out of the way. A bowling ball will have more kinetic energy and less air resistance, so it will transfer more kinetic energy to the pins. Terminal velocity also scales with mass and air resistance, so it was fine. Hey! A physicist gave me the stamp of approval. I told y'all I was right. You know, that's how the show ends, right there. See you later, suckers. I'm just kidding. We're going to do a show with Kirk in like 5 minutes. If I could play We Are the Champions by Queen, I would, you know? I knew it. I knew there was a relationship. That's wrong. Be quiet, Zubair. He's clearly a physicist and knows way more than you. So let's just move on and accept his authority as the absolute authority on the subject, right? We have better things to do with our time than to debate these piddly little things. Like, you know, scientific facts, you know? We can't be bothered with this stuff. I'll explain in Discord when I get on PC. Zubair, a true PC master race, he can only chat and argue on the PC. He needs those extra frames and path tracing in Discord. Oh. I'm getting better at my jokes against Zuby. You know, I can't always resort to the jokes about his weight. That's not fair, you know. Okay, I withdraw my objection. I'm a physician. Anyone get the reference? No. Other than the gibberish talk, I enjoyed Biomutant. Yeah, I don't get too opinionated about that, but I definitely have the opinion that if you're going to do voice acting, do it well. Okay, or at least just do it. If you're not going to do voice acting, then just don't make any sound. Just have a text box pop up. I don't need like... It's like, you can hire me, I can do that. Like, if you want the Swedish chef from frickin', you know, the Muppets. Like, if you want me to do that for your NPCs, but then your players are going to be like, dude, shut the frick up. Like, shut up. I don't want to hear this. Like, every time you go to talk to somebody, it's like, be quiet. Like, no one wants to hear that. You know? It is awful. Do it or don't. That's my opinion. Do it well or don't do it at all. But if you're gonna do it, at least do it. At least have voices. Dadgummit, he beat me to the Swedish chef joke. That's what it ends up sounding like. That's what it ends up sounding like. Hang on, I gotta get Kirk on this call. Start the video call, pop it out. There we go. And I need to be able to hear him. Hang on, I got it muted. And there you go. You're coming through now.
What's up? It's this guy that calls me every Monday at noon for some reason. Yells at me.
You're like on a business call. You're like, hang on, I gotta go. It's important matters.
So our earnings for this quarter are actually pretty good. Well, I got this crazy guy telling me that talks about centripetal force for 20 minutes on his gaming talk show.
I find stuff like that interesting. You know, you got to ask. You have to be willing. I learned recently you have to be willing to ask stupid questions. Oops, that's not the right file. There we go.
So we changed to Will This Be Good? So we're not doing Game of the Year talk anymore. That drastically improves your position. I don't know that I'll have any disagreements there.
I felt like it was going to be it wasn't going to be a very nuanced discussion to springboard off of if we're sort of split. So I thought it would better be like, hey, is this going to be good? Like, where do you land on it? Because what your feedback on it changed my mind on how I wanted to frame the discussion.
Okay. Let's see what's going on in chat. How you guys doing? What's going on, Kevin? What's going on, Raven? I would really have liked to have checked out Hades 2. Not being a non-PC gamer is really hurting right now with No Rest for the Wicked and Hades 2.
Those two specifically, yeah. That's a bit of FOMO there for the console-only guys.
But at the same time, like, I'm hearing No Rest for the Wicked is like, it's going to be an amazing game, but it's not quite there yet. That seems to be what the feedback is, so there's kind of a gratifying aspect to, like, just waiting and playing it when it's a feature complete game.
I think they knew they were taking a risk because it's like the format and the camera angle. I think can be it can translate into a frustrating experience.
Just watching it, like watching you and Andy Cortez, the only other person I've watched play it because I trust his opinion on Souls likes. Watching you guys play it, even just watching it, it's like something. It does something to my depth perception or something, where it's like, oh, like that swing went there, or he dodged back there. Like it's something wonky about it, and I think it's a me thing. But other people have said something similar, so maybe not. It might just be one of those things where, like, you know, some people with VR, they get they get motion sick almost instantaneously. So what's going on, True? Nothing stopped. Well, I guess something is stopping me from playing on PC.
Real quick, you can talk with chat. I'm gonna take my quick break. Do you have Ginger today?
No, dude, that's done. We don't do that anymore.
Yeah, I guess okay. I forgot about the
yeah.
the wrestling arc that we're all going through. You know, like, all right, well, rivalry started.
You know, you and I are we feel that you know, for gaming content and gaming channel, people are coming to it probably expecting apolitical commentary. So that's how you and I tend to keep it for the audience, and there's just a disparity in approach there.
Yeah. All right, you can keep talking to chat. I'll be right back.
What's up, United? What's up, Mr. Gene? Gene, sorry. What's up, Aos? Bithar. Want to make sure I get everybody here. Shout out everybody. What's up, Sincere? I assume I am my guy. I assume I am your guy. Your title's wrong should be Kirk the Gamer. Okay. So I'm actually, you guys can tell me, I'm actually considering this as the title in chat. Tell me if you guys think this would work. Not like a full rebrand. I might do a full rebrand in the future, but I'm thinking of spelling it like this. Does this make your eyes bleed? Do you hate this? If I changed it to that, it would be much more searchable. Tell me what you guys think. No? Murph Dog says no. Sassy Lost Child. Kind of has a D's nuts vibe. What is up, Troll? Jaggy, what's going on? No, you didn't miss the drama, Zubair. What? That's awful? Oh, God. You guys are terrible, man. What's new, Zunu? Shut up and make some content. No! Shut up and make some content. I'm so look. I understand Creature has started the Kirk the Gamer campaign. I'm not doing Kirk the Gamer. It has to be like Lono's, like Reforge Gaming, like something. So to be clear, you guys like the title now better than that one, better than What's New. You like What's New video games better. Because I'll just keep it the way that it is until I can think of a better name. But it's got to be, yes, it's not going to have Kirk in it, and it's got to be... No, it was not my best Drake imitation, Lord Finesse. There is a mariachi song that Drake commissioned where it's like, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, Metro! That is using that line. It's very funny. You should look it up. Kirkland Brand, nice. They're both bad. Thank you, Lone Wolf. Jesus. Kirk the Captain. No, guys. Like, I do reviews. Like, I'm not trying to be like a personality. And I mean, maybe that's where I'm going wrong. But, like, you see, like think of, like, an outlet name. Like, you take somebody like Gaz. Like, Gaz is Septic Sauce. But then his, like, outlet with Asa is Game On Daily. Like, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm not really trying to go, like, persona first, like, me, personality first, because I don't know. Like, I'm a little more, like, stuffy, I think, personality-wise. I mean, you guys are into that, because, you know, this guy. But, I am on Twitch. You can follow me at Kirk the Gamer, ironically. Very ironically. What's good, guys? Yeah, that's why a boogie is nobody can search me. So I don't know.
Why are you looking forlorn about it?
Do people want to know what I think?
About
I don't
what?
know. Things in general.
What, like
camera gaming?
What, are you talking about like outside of gaming? Do people want to know what you think?
No. Somebody brought up the creature debate of it needs to be Kirk the Gamer.
I'll just say that he has helped me for a couple of years, and he's tried to help other people. And the people that are resistant to how systems work because of their own proclivities and their own preferences, they tend to hurt themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm somebody who's completely changed my format largely because of the way that YouTube operates, like uploading a monologue and then doing a live show. If you compare that to what I was doing when I first started streaming, which was 6-hour streams just hanging out talking about Destiny. So like, I don't know. You have to find your path within the annals of reality. You can't like be like, well, you know, I really want to do reviews of individual pieces of chess sets that I own. Great, you know, and I'm gonna name my channel Kirk's Fingers.
Knight takes rooks or something.
Well, I'm just saying, like, if you do things that are almost counterintuitive to the way the systems work, then you have to expect resistance from the systems themselves.
Yeah, I just want an outlet adjacent name like yours. Like yours can hang with the, you know, the I don't know, the Xbox eras and the outside Xbox. I'm just thinking of Xbox ones now. But it also is like in the same line as like a skill up or something, because like you're at the front of it, but also it's more of a concept, it's more of an idea, it's more here's where you get gaming content, here's where you learn about what's going on in gaming news. I want something that communicates that. It's not just here is a guy named Kirk and he talks. Like it's too limiting.
Okay, well, you have to brainstorm.
Yeah.
Massage it. And then sit on it. Like, we sat on the name Reforge Gaming, I think, for about a week before we pulled the trigger.
Yeah, and you knew it was right, though. That's the main thing. It's like you were just like, no, this is it.
Yeah, my gut. It was like when I thought I'm not going to say the name of my daughter, but it was like when I thought of the name for my daughter, I just knew it. I was like, that's her name. Like, instantly. Sometimes just things you're that confident about, so. All right, chat. I'm going to spam a link in chat. Now, do me a favor. Okay? Do me a favor. Smash the like button on this video. I need 50 more likes on this video about Starfield. All right, get me to 400. We had a big day, and the likes help. Okay, don't be afraid to circle back.
I'm hitting the button.
Hit the button. Now, also, when we get over to the new stream, get me those first 100 likes about as fast as you can. It really, really helps, because YouTube's like, hey, wow, you have a couple hundred people watching right away and no likes. Like, we got to balance that out, and it's always hard when we redirect and I'm talking to somebody else, because I can't, you know, let the chat know, hey, we need those. So help us out with that. All right, you can click the link in chat, or you can ride the redirect. I'm gonna be quiet for like, I don't know, half a second, and then I'm gonna start the show. I'm gonna turn the music down now.
Okay.
Thanks so much for checking out this weekly segment where I sit down on Monday, usually for my second live show of the day, and we talk about a subject with my man Kirk from What's New Video Games. And we're asking the question today, will Stellar Blade be a good game? Now, I have an upload where I say I do think it will be good. I've spent more time with the game since then, so I'm going to kind of engage Kirk here, because he played it last night, and he was initially feeling a little not so great about it. I think his opinion might have shifted a little bit, so I'm curious where he lands. We were originally going to be like, hey, is this going to get Game of the Year nominated? Like, not necessarily will it win, but will it get nominated? So we're going to be talking about this from all sorts of different angles. I'm going to end the previous stream about Starfield. Can it have a redemption arc? Can it have a comeback? I'm going to redirect people over from that. Thank you guys so much for supporting the monologue upload.